That's it. Cardio.
Cardiovascular training, Gary. Why would we implement some sort of cardiovascular conditioning into our program?
Firstly, because cardio, from my perspective, is very underrated for its effects on improving your kind of general perceived well-being and like levels of energy. Like I find it to be really, really helpful. Like even personally, like I do a lot of exercise. I've always for the last 10 years or whatever been training fairly consistently in some way, but it's really when I'm at my fittest from a cardiovascular perspective and I'm doing a lot of cardio every week that I just feel my best, feel my sharpest, even when I'm at a heavier body weight. Like right now, I'm actually the heaviest I've ever been, which is really weird because I'm
120, 130.
yeah, 130 kilos. I'm definitely not the fattest I've ever been, which is great. But at this weight, I've been this weight before, but I've never been anywhere near as fit as I am from a cardiovascular perspective at this weight. And it makes such a difference. Like I just don't notice that I have any extra weight. Like I've gained 10 kilos this year. And normally what would happen is if I was in an extended gaining phase like that, is I just notice it a little bit more if I was, I don't know, going for a walk or doing lots of stairs, or I was going hiking or something like that. You just noticed a bit of extra weight. And like right now, it's just not the case. So that's my personal anecdote. But it's also something that I see with a lot of my clients where as we begin to introduce some more cardio, especially with my clients who come from a weight training background, as we build up their fitness, they really notice it in their everyday life, which is something that, it may seem kind of obvious, but I think it's one of those things that is it's obvious to the person on the street. It's almost like a bell curve, it's obvious to the person on the street, but then your average personal trainer maybe doesn't appreciate it as much because they're just doing weight training a lot of the time. But then it's the person that goes past that stage and starts getting fit again that they actually realize it as well.
It is actually really counterintuitive. Like you think of it as like, oh, I'm actually going to spend energy, or I'm going to exert energy, and in return, I'm going to feel more energetic. Like it's counterintuitive. It doesn't really
Yeah.
make sense. Obviously, again, when we get down to like the actual adaptations that occur, even like the vascularization, so you have better blood flow, the increased like lung capacity, whatever. Like there's all these other whole host of benefits. But even down to like a mitochondrial level, like you're actually getting mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning that you're actually growing effectively more mitochondria. And as everyone knows, mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. Like you therefore have more powerhouses, right? So of course you're going to feel more energetic. That's what we want. We've built these powerhouses as a result of the cardiovascular conditioning that we are doing. So it makes sense, but it is kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, and with that said, of course, there's a limit to that. If you're doing 35 hours of running a week, you're not going to be very energetic. And anytime I've done like really intensive cardio for long periods of time, like you definitely do get super fatigued from it. And if you do an assault bike session in the morning, you 10 rounds of 20 calories or something like that, you're not going to be energetic after that. Okay, so there's absolutely a limit. But in general, getting
It's one
fitter.
of those things as well. Like it's like anything. Recovery is an energy intensive process. So
Yeah.
in the actual recovery phase, like when you're still actively recovering, you're going to feel like you have less energy. It's only once you are recovered, like I say, and I'm sure you do as well, say to your clients all the time, it's like fatigue masks fitness. It's like we're not going to be able to realize our ultimate potential while we are fatigued, while we are still recovering from all this exercise. So we want to, strip things back so that when we actually want to exhibit our, fitness, we don't want to be recovering. We want to be recovered.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And of course, it goes beyond just feeling good as well. Okay. So cardiovascular training is very potent at multiple different levels. Again, Paddy said down to the mitochondrial level and subcellular level. Generally, there's loads of benefits. Okay. But the things that people are generally thinking about would be, for example, increases in VO2 max, okay, which would be quality of your aerobic fitness. You get benefits to your heart in terms of the specific adaptations within the heart and the heart muscle and the coordination of that by the nervous system within your vasculature, so your blood vessels, reductions in blood pressure, etc., etc. All of these things along that chain of the cardiorespiratory system are going to be improved when you are doing more of this cardiovascular exercise. So it's very, very beneficial from a long-term health perspective. And all of us are going to get to the point where we have accumulating risk factors for cardiovascular disease, because one of them is being male. Sorry, I can't change that. Another one is, age, obviously, and none of us are going to change that either. So regardless of your LDL, regardless of your blood pressure now, or whatever other risk factors you might have in mind, we still accumulate some risk over time. And as a result, everything that you have in your favor is a good thing. And one of the nice things about fitness as well is that when you have more of it, you've got more of a reserve, kind of like Paddy said about the muscle mass previously. So if you were, God forbid, to have a heart attack at some point in your life, in your 50s, let's say, you're going to bounce back a lot better from that if you've already got a lot of those cardiovascular adaptations earlier on in life. And you also see things like, for example, when people do have heart attacks, if they already had trained their heart to be able to deal with that stress, that they deal with it a little bit better. Okay. So putting all that together, obviously, reductions in cardiovascular disease risk, reductions in basically every other disease risk as well. And then obviously there's the performance element on top of that, where you're going to be able to do things for longer and do them faster as well, probably. That's effectively how you summarize cardiovascular training. And that, of course, is a spectrum. If you're doing shorter, sharper bursts, you're going to be developing more of those anaerobic or high output qualities. Whereas if you're doing the longer endurance stuff, you're going to be more likely to obviously to be developing your ability to endure more aerobically. So again, the specifics of that training will again come back to your goals. So if you're a runner, you'll be doing more running, obviously. If you're a general trainee just looking to develop general aerobic fitness, you can do whatever. It literally doesn't matter. You could be doing a rower one day, you could do some ski erg, you could do a bike erg, you could do the assault bike, etc., etc. You're ultimately looking for general adaptations in those cases, as opposed to specific adaptations.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where, again, it comes back to your goals. What are we actually trying to achieve? But just as a very generic starting point, you have a number of energy systems, and cardiovascular training allows you to target each of those energy systems to some extent or another, right? So if we are looking to be fitter, whether that's fitter across a 10-second mark, maybe you're a power lifter and you want to be fit for, I don't know, fucking 3 seconds, and you're like, okay, well, obviously I need to be able to exhibit strength in those 3 seconds that it takes you to do the lift. But you want to enhance that energy system as much as you can, and you also want to be able to recover that energy system as much as you can, right? So from the energy systems level, it makes sense to do cardiovascular training. Obviously, the specifics are dictated by your actual goals. But then also from the actual, what people think of the cardiovascular stuff, it makes sense. You're training your heart, you're training your lungs, you're training your vascular system. It's I think everyone intuitively understands that they're all important to you actually living. I think everyone understands that breathing and pumping blood around your body are, two fundamental things of a living human, right? So if we can get better at those two things, well, quite frankly, we can get better at being a human, right? And as I said, you might think of that as just, oh, that's just, whatever. He's just saying better at being a human. But think about it. If you are tired, you're rarely at your best, right? If you're tired, cranky, whatever, you're not going to be at your best. If you're not tired because you're fitter, you're going to be able to show up at a much better position. And this is for everything in your life. I'm talking about relationship with friends, family, significant other, whatever, right? If you're not absolutely knackered all the time, you're going to turn up in a much better position, right? So cardiovascular training just makes sense. Obviously, the specifics of it, that's where the the actual implementation and the details really start to matter, right?